I'm Shivani Gupta. I'm obsessed with small to medium businesses growing. As business owners, we take so much risk and we want to make sure it's worth it. I believe one of the best presents you can give yourself as a business owner is to be able to learn how to scale your people, your profit, and your processes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grow Your Business podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Gupta. Today, I'm going to be speaking about stress. Now, stress is a word that causes us stress, just knowing that I'm going to be speaking about stress. But particularly as small to medium business owners, a lot of the audience that's listening in and tuning in today, one of the conversations is, what is stress? How do we overcome it? How do we know that it's on its way? Because a lot of us actually probably are stressed and we don't actually call it that. Or we use the word stress without really linking it into specific symptoms as well. So stress is often, sometimes people use the word overwhelm or stress, which is our response to either having too many things on our plate, which we can all relate to, or it can also relate to when we've got new situations and we're having to adjust ourselves in terms of getting and adapting to those particular situations as well. So sometimes stress has mental impact, and we've obviously through the pandemic spoken a lot about mental wellness, mental health issues that have arisen. And so that stress can manifest itself from a mental perspective, and we can have no physical symptoms. And sometimes it can actually manifest as physical symptoms. It can have changes in the body or the way that we react or our digestive system, or it can be both, right? It can be physical as well as mental as well. Sometimes what happens is stress comes in and it goes out. So we get stressed about something and then it goes out. An example is you're sitting on a plane and the captain comes on and the captain says, hey, we found somebody's bag on board and we now need to just spend another 10 minutes. So we're going to be delayed by 10 minutes because we need to get this bag off. And there's a little moment of stress that happens. But then, they said, look, by the time 10 minutes later, the captain comes back on and says, we've been able to remove the bag and everything's all good. And before you know it, we'll be up in the air and we'll be able to gather the 10 minutes. And that stresses momentarily and then it disappears in terms of what happens. Other times stress stays and it can have a really big impact on our health, our productivity, the way that we believe things, the way that we achieve things. And it can also, and particularly as business owners, when we've got some of our people that are stressed, it can then cause them to leave, it can cause high turnover, and that stress can impact in terms of how we operate on a day-to-day basis. And so some of the stress can be triggered by really long-term things. So for example, there's a death in the family, or somebody gets really sick, or you have a really, really challenging financial year and your profits are way down, or you're not even be able to make payroll. Those sort of stresses can be really big. I know for me personally, I tend to deal with the business stuff better than personal stuff. And so sometimes for me, if there's a friendship that's broken up, that causes me stress. If somebody's not communicating very well in the family or my friendship group, that causes me stress. That causes me more stress than, dealing with the profit, et cetera, of businesses, because I tend to be less emotional about it and I can come up with ideas or brainstorm ways to be able to get out doing that. And obviously some of the changes that might be happening, we've just spoken about COVID, and I don't want to spend our session talking about stress and COVID because I know for many of you that are listening, it impacted you. There were a few organizations that benefited from COVID, but for a lot of people, a lot of SME owners, it caused a lot of stress, particularly around payroll and what we were going to be able to do, or if your businesses were shut as well, unless you were frontline staff. So some of the stress, particularly for business owners, comes in with very, very high workloads. And often you've got your name, if you listed all the 272 things, for example, that you do in your business and your name's next to a lot of them, well, that workload is going to cause a lot of issues and a lot of stress in terms of what happens. There also may be changes happening in your industry. You may be a growing industry and you can't keep up, particularly with things like some of the changes that are coming in through ChatGPT and what that might mean for your business, let alone all the other different technologies and AI that's starting to come in. That might also be causing you stress. COVID, obviously, we've spoken about. Also the fact that some employees that might be working for you are fantastic, really engaged, highly productive, put their hand up to do lots of different things, but others may be very low in productivity. And obviously, as I spoke about earlier, cash flow business and profits, have a really big impact, because when we've got more cash in the bank, we can feel a little bit more relaxed. We psychologically, take a sigh, and we know that there's some space there. When there's not a lot of cash in the bank, we start to get stressed about it. So there's many, many, many signs of stress in terms of what might be happening. You might find at times your heart beats faster. You might have muscle tension. You might feel a bit panic. Some people have panic and anxiety attacks, headaches. Poor sleep. Poor sleep is a really big one for me. When I am stressed, I have a pattern. I tend to eat junk food, and I will stay up and watch stupid things that are normally not would interest me on Netflix, and I will then impact my sleep. Or I'll go to sleep, but then I will wake up in the middle of the night and I will be stressed. And so often when I have broken sleep, that is often a sign for me that I am not sleeping that well in terms of what we're doing. And so constantly feeling on edge or worrying about things causes stress. Constantly feeling like my inability to be able to cope, or so many things are changing, does that. And also, sometimes we start to eat a lot of food. Sometimes we don't eat enough food. Sometimes we start to withdraw from people. And obviously there's some support. If you're listening to this and if this is really starting to get you to think about that, I would so suggest, outside of this podcast, please reach out to your doctor or your GP and make sure that you go and see somebody to get some further support if you're going, yeah, I've been like this for a long, long time. So how do we manage our stress? What are some of the things that we do as business owners? And often as a business owner, we think, you know what, if we had higher staff, better staff that were more engaged, people that cared more, that would actually help. Well, that will help, and you'll have some people that'll be amazing and some people that won't be so amazing. Some of that's in your control and some of it is not in your control. So the question becomes, what is in your control as a business owner? What are some of the things that you can do to manage and reduce your stress? Well, the first thing that you are in charge of, even though you may have, as I said, 272 things on your list and you've got so much to get done, the first thing might be to work out, how do I maintain a more healthy lifestyle? How do I make time for my family and friends and doing the things that I love doing? The second one is exercise. And I know this is going to sound like the basic stuff: connect with people, eat well, sleep better, exercise more. So, they're the basic principles in us for being able to manage our life, but particularly around stress. So having exercise, and a lot of business owners say to me, particularly in coaching sessions, Shivani, I don't have time to exercise. I have so many things on my plate. I know that. But imagine that if somebody said, if you did 1 unit of that, you could create 2 or 3 units of that as an outcome. Of course you would. If you could invest $10 and make $30, of course you would. So the thing is, when you exercise, you get rid of a lot of stress. You reduce your stress. And one of the things you're able to do is not only increase your energy, but you increase your stamina and your positivity, and you start to look at things because there's less stress and cortisol in your body. So finding exercise that suits you, that suits your health frame, that suits some of your interests is great. For me, that's yoga. I absolutely love doing yoga, and having that scheduled in my diary. In between, so my meetings all go around my yoga classes in a week, and I find that that is great. Now, 10% of the time it doesn't work, 90% of the time it does. The other thing I've learned as a business owner, and I come across a lot when I'm working with people one-on-one as well, is the ability to be able to say no. One of the things as business owners we do is we overcommit ourselves at times, and we keep saying yes to everything. Yes to this charity work. Yes to, going and sitting on that particular panel. Yes to speaking at that thing. Yes to working on that thing. So we want to keep saying yes, because we're not practiced at good at saying no. Now, some of those things might be really fantastic for your business and great for your connectivity. But if you have too many things on your plate, as if you want to Google the stress curve is basically a bell curve. You are stressed when you don't have enough to do. And I've experienced that at different times in my life. But you also get stressed and your productivity comes down when you have too many things to do. So having your diary, I don't love scheduling my diary to the nth degree. I also have a family diary with my husband. So we send each other meeting invites for when we've got social events or kids have got certain things, or one of us is traveling, so that everything is in the diary. When everything's in the diary, that means, for me, I find that there's less things in your mind. So having some time, half an hour, 45 minutes in a week, whenever that is, whether it's a Friday night, Monday morning, midweek, having some time to schedule things that you want to get done and scheduling them. And then, if you go, yeah, I want to work on that particular report for an hour, and then I want to work on that. But when you actually schedule it, you realize actually you've already used up some of those hours. So either I need to say no, or I need to reprioritize, or I need to actually move some things out of my diary altogether, or delegate them to different people as well. And the other thing is you need to find ways in terms of being able to, unwind, to be able to relax. And, some people go, yes, but I drink wine and that relaxes me. Well, that's true. But besides, in small amounts, it's not that great for you. So if you're relying on drinking and a glass of wine that you look forward to the end of each day, that's also got some side effects, because that also feels like it's a addiction of some sort in terms of doing that. And again, if anything that I'm saying here, you go, yep, I do that. I drink every night. I need to go and see somebody. Please go and see your GP or your doctor, and then work out what other support you might need to create in your life. Now, for me, breathing techniques, which only take 1 or 2 minutes, meditating every day into my daily routine help me a lot. But people, it's different things. Some people it's taking a bath. Some people it's going out to the garden. But making sure that you've got things that unwind you, particularly at the end of the day. It's so important to be able to do that. And the last thing I wanted to cover is, if it's not you as much, and business owners, we carry so much stress, I just also wanted to point out a couple of ways that you might be able to provide helping employees that might be going through very, very stressful time. Again, they might have had something happen in their family, or there might be the workload and different things. So the first thing is encouraging your team to actually take some breaks. There's a reason in schools where every 50 minutes or so there's a break, and you actually swap teachers. Sometimes you swap classes, particularly in high school. So having a little break scheduled in for people between meetings, rather than go meeting to meeting. The second is, if they've got personal leave, really encouraging them to take it, because there's no point it being there, and encouraging them to take it. Some organisations go far where they won't let annual leave go past a particular point, so they have forced leave, but making sure that you encourage people to be able to take their leave. The other is also showing employees where they can get some support. So that support you might have some internal ways that they can get support. They can come and talk to you as a business owner. You might have somebody in your HR team, or you might have somebody external where they can go and see a counsellor, or even a list of references of people that they can contact. And the other thing that really helps reduce a lot of stress that I've experienced is having flexible work arrangements. Now, not every role that you have, you may be able to do that in, but for the ones that do that, it really helps reduce stress and allows people to be able to manage all the different things that you need to be able to do. And just having that open communication is such an important way to be able to, demystify all of these things around stress. So I always think, stress is a really, really big word. Let's break it down into what's stressing you. Let's work out a couple of very simple things that we can start off with today or this week, and then we start to action it. I hope you got 1 or 2 good tips out of that. If you've got any ideas on small business podcasts, or if you think that a guest will be fantastic, please always feel free to suggest that. We'd love to hear from any people, any guests that would like to be on here as a guest, talking to other small to medium business owners in terms of what they can do to grow their business. And always would appreciate if you could take 30 seconds and go onto Apple and be able to review and rate this podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Grow Your Business podcast. I hope you got one idea that you can think about, or perhaps even implement straight away in your business. Thank you for listening. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn under Ask Shivani. Remember, I call it Ask Shivani, so please send me your questions that I can address in this podcast for you. And I would also so appreciate if you went to the Apple Podcast to rate and review this podcast.